In many of our favorite fantasy RPGs, jewelry as a concept can serve as part of the story, character customization, and in most cases, a way to boost stats through additional slots, usually in the form of rings or amulets. Jewelry in the Elder Scrolls is unique because it exists for pretty much all of the reasons that we just mentioned, particularly in the later mainline games. It is also a powerful tool that maintains connections between Arena and all the way through to Skyrim, something that keeps the world together despite dragon breaks or other discrepancies and changes in the lore that have happened in the last 30 years that the Elder Scrolls universe exists. We have looked at jewelry on this channel briefly in my clothing-focused videos, but today I wanted to bring a more in-depth look at the most precious and important pieces of jewelry, as well as everything else in between in the Elder Scrolls games. And before we get started, hi, my name is Angelika, and sometimes I don't really want to go around boasting my septum heritage. We all know what happened to that one guy. And as much as I'd like to, I can't really go around dressed like this all the time either. I don't want to get ridiculed out of my local Tesco. Instead, I look for other and more subtle ways to incorporate fantasy elements into my style, and one of the ways in which I do that is through jewelry. And this is where Holzkern comes in with all of the beautiful pieces that they've sent me to share with you guys. Holzkern are a watch and jewelry company for both men and women, and each product is really unique because it is made from natural materials in small quantities to ensure a high standard of quality for each piece. Because of this, there's something magical about each of their pieces, like it almost could have come from a fantasy world. They use stone like marble and onyx, gemstones like amethysts and jade, and very interestingly, all different types of woods, which is FSC certified wood, by the way, meaning that it comes from responsibly managed forests. And it is actually one of the reasons that I was really excited to partner with them, because we love a sustainable queen. Honestly, if Legolas wore a watch, it would be a Holzkern watch. I don't think anyone would even bat an eye. This, to me, is lore-accurate elven timekeeping. If you were thinking of gifting something along the lines of jewelry or a watch this Christmas, then this is the perfect product because you're combining the idea of a pretty traditional gift to give to someone, but with a really distinctive twist. Something that has a good energy and a positive background. Products are shipped from Vienna, and they typically take like 2 to 5 business days to arrive, and if you order now before December 19th, then you're surely going to have it in time for Christmas Day. Also, they do take care of customs fees for you, which is like a really stressful part of shopping for Christmas online, so you don't have to worry about that. You can also use my discount code Angelika for 15% off your order. Down in the description of this video, I do have a link to their store, so have a look around and gift something really memorable to your favorite person this year. Now back to jewelry in the Elder Scrolls. In this video, for the first time ever, we are actually going to go all the way back to Arena. The protagonist in Arena, or the Eternal Champion, could wear the following as jewelry: amulets, rings, bracelets, and torques. Right away, I want to say that torques are such a unique thing to include in a fantasy RPG. Now, at this point, no jewelry items are actually visible on your character, but you can kind of come up with an image yourself. And just in case you're not sure what a torque is, it's like a stiff metal collar that usually has an opening at the front that's usually not fully closed. These were found all over Europe, and they were really prominent in, for example, Celtic craft up to a certain point. So again, it's just a really unique thing to include in an RPG, and I love that they thought of that. It's just something other than your typical necklaces and amulets that you would usually imagine in a game like that. So because jewelry wasn't visible on you, the main purpose of it back then was for story and obviously stats with its enchantments. Arena is also a very interesting game to talk about in terms of in-game jewelry because, like I mentioned before, it introduced some of the most iconic items that serve as a sort of glue which firmly holds together the connection between Arena and the later Elder Scrolls games. Arena came out in 1994, that is 30 years ago, and when you look at later Elder Scrolls games, I mean, it might as well be set on another planet just because of how different it is. But because of these items, we as the players remain grounded in this particular world. Now, these items in Arena were known as artifacts, and one such artifact that you will probably recognize if you've played any of the mainline Elder Scrolls games is the Necromancer's Amulet. This iconic item belonged to none other than the King of of Worms, Manimarco. And in the Codex Scientia, which is the official hint book for Arena, it is described as follows. The legendary Necromancer's Amulet, the last surviving relic of the mad sorcerer Manimarco, grants any spellcaster who wears it the ability to absorb magical energy and regenerate from injury. The amulet is mystically fortified to give the person wearing it an armor rating equivalent to plate armor, without the weight and restriction of movement. This makes the artifact popular amongst thieves and mages alike. It is the one flaw of the amulet that it is unstable in this world, forever doomed to fade in and out of existence, reappearing at locations distant from that of its disappearance. So that description pretty much gives a really solid explanation as to why the amulet does reappear in all of these really dispersed locations in the later games. Perhaps it even somehow justifies its evolving appearance from game to game. In Daggerfall, this amulet again cannot be seen equipped on your character, and there is a slight addition to its description as well. It says that the bearer also becomes wise beyond his years. In Daggerfall, the amulet comes as a possible reward in 2 separate quests, and interestingly, its appearance sort of resembles an Egyptian ankh, which is a hieroglyph that signifies life. In Morrowind, the amulet does not have a unique appearance, but instead that of the exquisite amulet, and it is obtained by killing Trebonius Artorius, the Archmage of Morrowind's Mages Guild. In Oblivion, then, you have my favorite version of the Necromancer's Amulet. In size, it's about the same as the Amulet of Kings, and the central gem is this specific greenish turquoise, a really good color to represent death. It almost reminds me of the Army of the Dead from The Lord of the Rings, and in it, you can see a skull with what looks like maybe a worm going through one of the eyes. It's a real shame that you don't get to keep it though, because once it's taken away from you as part of the quest where you retrieve it for the Mages Guild, it's never given back to you. And again, it's just one of the most outstanding pieces in the game. I do wish you could have kept it. In Skyrim, you have a similarly colored central gem, but a much less impressive overall presentation. Though I'm not sure that this was originally the idea, and perhaps they went with this design either due to a miscommunication or maybe due to time constraints. You see, in Skyrim, the amulet is obtained via the Blood on Ice quest when you're looking for the killer or the butcher who took the lives of several young women in Windhelm and left their mutilated bodies on the snow. During your investigation, you will find something called a strange amulet, and if you bring it to Woundfirth the Unliving, who's Ulfric's court wizard, conversation with him will prompt you to give him a description of the amulet. And you say that it is 8-sided, jade, ringed with ebony, a worn carving. Really, it sounds like the original idea was for the amulet to resemble its Oblivion version, as opposed to what they actually ended up creating. It's one of those oversights that kind of bothers me, like I wish it wasn't overlooked, but also, like, it is what it is. Another such item that we hear about in the later games all the way up to Oblivion is the Ring of Khajiit. In Arena's Codex Scientia, the ring has the following description. The Ring of Khajiiti is an ancient relic, hundreds of years older than Rajin, the thief who made the ring famous. It was Rajin who used the ring's powers to make himself as invisible, silent, and quick as a breath of wind. Using the ring, he became the most successful burglar in Elswere's history. Rajin's eventual fate is a mystery, but according to legend, the ring rebelled against such constant use and disappeared, leaving Rajin helpless before his enemies. It's funny how, in theory, this ring works similarly to how the One Ring in The Lord of the Rings works, which I imagine must have been part of their inspiration, but the other thing is that this little piece of jewelry is responsible for the controversial reputation that the race of Khajiit have in Tamriel, which, to be fair, a lot of them actually embrace. We'll say it's partly responsible. In Daggerfall, this ring is awarded to you for completing the Daedric Prince Meridius quest, and in Morrowind you get it as a reward for completing Mephalis quest. I do not know if this was intentional or if whoever was adding the ring to Morrowind just confused the 2 Daedric princes whose names both begin with M. At least it wasn't Molag Bal. Its appearance in Morrowind is stunning, by the way. It looks similar to what the Exquisite ring is like, even though you cannot see it on your actual character, but more on that later. There are a couple of other items from Arena that do appear in the later games, but in terms of jewelry, for me, the most prominent ones are the Necromancer's Amulet and the Ring of Khajiit. And now let's take a closer look at Daggerfall jewelry. In Daggerfall, you could wear the following: amulets/torques, bracelets, and rings. Though you cannot see the jewelry on your character, which is really no surprise, the art for it is rather nice. Except for the rings, they really just put a yellow dot there and called it a day. But you do see a lot of jewelry in the game that doesn't really have any names or, we'll say, existing in-game items behind them, and that would be the circlets, crowns, and other things that are built into the design of the NPCs in the game. We have previously talked about how Daggerfall has some of the most beautifully designed NPCs, and the built-in jewelry is definitely a part of that. And now moving on to Morrowind, this is where things start to get really interesting. So the Nerevarine could wear rings and amulets, one amulet at a time and up to 2 rings, because you know, you have 2 hands and at least a finger on each hand. Skyrim. Sorry, I'll get to that later. In Morrowind, the jewelry does not appear on your character, but it does have a physical appearance in the game, which is really something. The level of effort put into the design of every single one of these items is honestly commendable. For both rings and amulets, you have several options within a particular quality grade, from common quality to exquisite. These particular items do have a unique or enchanted version which share their model. There is also a whole set of uniquely designed artifact jewelry, which, interestingly enough, the Necromancer's amulet actually didn't make the cut to get its own unique model in the game. Instead, it shares the model with the exquisite amulet, but there are plenty of other pieces that themselves are iconic, beautifully designed, and also sort of weird. I'm not sure how you're meant to wear this around your neck, to be honest, but maybe that wasn't the intention. I'm not sure. It's called an amulet. But regardless, these are super impressive, really unusual designs in some cases, and it's just one of those things that makes Morrowind really unique for me. And now for Oblivion. I'm going to be straight up, Oblivion is my favorite game for Elder Scrolls jewelry. They have the most beautifully designed pieces. There isn't a whole lot of them, to be fair, but what is there has always just been super memorable for me. I think it's really eye-catching and I love looking at it. I don't know, it's just the best. The only appropriate way to open this section is by talking about arguably the most iconic piece of jewelry in the entire Elder Scrolls universe, and that is the Amulet of Kings. What is it and where did it come from? There are several theories as to its origins, including the idea that it is the crystallized blood of Lorkhan, that it is a soul gem that was created by the Ayleids, or my favorite version where Akatosh appeared before the slave queen Alicia, embedded her soul into the amulet, and canonized her in order to protect the mortal realm from the Daedra. Henceforth, only those with dragon blood could wear the amulet. At first it was passed on to the Remans, and eventually the Septims. Linking an emperor's soul to the amulet was written into tradition and became a part of the coronation process of a new emperor. You, the player, are confirmed to definitely not have dragon blood, since the amulet slips off your neck when you try to wear it. We all tried it, be honest. But this dragon blood condition isn't necessarily the only one. Or maybe it's not the reason that you cannot wear it at all. I say this because Mankar Cameron was also able to wear the amulet, while Martin Septim, the true heir, was right there. There is much discussion around this to this day, with some speculating that perhaps Mankar, being a descendant of Ayleids from a different bloodline and having a separate right to rule, gave him this ability. Others say that he could wear it because he was in his own paradise realm, where technically whatever he wants should be possible. However, we see him wearing it outside of the Paradise Realm. So, what's really the deal here? Does the amulet decide who can be ruler? If so, why would it choose Mankar Cameron, who collaborated with a Daedric prince, if one of the origin theories suggests that it was given to Alicia in the first place to protect the realm from the Daedra? I would love to hear your takes and theories on this in the comments, because I don't have it fully figured out myself. And back to the look of the amulet. The center red diamond is certainly worthy of being the crown jewel of the Cyrodiilic Empire. The beautiful saturated colors of the gems around the frame which hold the diamond are also a nice touch, and there are 8 of them supposedly to represent the 8 divines. I was really bitter that I couldn't wear it in-game, to be honest. Luckily, I do not have that problem in real life. There are several other amulets in the game which bear close resemblance to the Amulet of Kings, mostly in shape. The main one that I would like to mention is is Arnora's amulet, specifically her false one. I absolutely adore this amulet. The bright blue is stunning, and it really stands out and leaves an impression on you the first time you encounter it because of how much it reminds you of the Amulet of Kings. Ironically, the true amulet, which is red and really even closer to the look of the Amulet of Kings because of that, is somehow less impressive to me. Next, and we've already discussed this, but the Necromancer's amulet in Oblivion stands out for a similar reason: the shape and size of the amulet, and again the really saturated color of the central gem. Another amulet that I appreciate a lot for pretty much all the same reasons is the Dreamworld amulet. It is used as part of a quest to wake a Penantir and help him out of his dream world. There are several amulets with unique appearances. Another highlight for me is the Spelldrinker's amulet, which is also known for a bug where the amulet apparently shapeshifts. At times it appears like the Necromancer's amulet, and at others it's taking on the appearance of the Amulet of Kings. In terms of rings, the most notable for me would be the Indara's Signet ring and the Ring of Khajiit, which has a really strange and different appearance compared to the other rings in the game. When it comes to rings, I will be honest and say that I actually prefer their design in Morrowind. They are higher quality looking than the ones in Oblivion, but Oblivion does get points for actually displaying the rings on your character, so there is that. There are plenty of unique and enchanted amulets and rings in the game, and they pretty much all look the same except for having different colored gems in the center, the chain being a different metal, and other minor details that you notice when you receive an amulet. They are, like I said, all displayed on the characters, and I really enjoy going through the world in Oblivion, being myself able to wear these and seeing others wear them too. And this brings us to Skyrim. So one of the ways that Skyrim stands out is that it actually includes circlets to be worn on your head, and that's not something that we saw in the previous games, which I think for Oblivion in particular is such a huge miss. All the jewelry is displayed on your character, and you have the vanity items like necklaces, similarly to Oblivion, where it is all the same model but just with different metals, and added gems or no gems at all. Circlets and rings follow that same formula, except circlets always have gems. Sometimes they're just all the same color or different colors. Amulets are where Skyrim really got it right, in my opinion. Now, not in every case, but they explored a concept for the first time that was entirely missing from the previous Elder Scrolls games, and that is the Amulets of the Divines. For each of the 9 divines, you have a uniquely designed amulet that symbolically corresponds to its respective divine and gives you a blessing when you wear it. Not only is this a massive addition to guide our understanding of worship and belief in Tamriel, it is also just a great way to add depth to the world and the people that inhabit it. You will meet NPCs and you'll see them wearing a particular amulet. You will learn something about them. I really love it when games give you ways to better interpret the world that you're in without literally spelling it out for you at every turn. My favorites are the Amulet of Mara, Dibella, and Arche. Just the whole concept of the Amulet of Mara being worn as a symbol of someone who's single and looking. Again, it's additional depth, and I love how they did that. In terms of unique amulets in the game, or ones that don't share a model with the necklaces, you have a few options like the Thieves Guild Amulet of Articulation, the Amulet of Bats and the Amulet of the Gargoyle, and the Sarthal Amulet, which does share its model with some other uniques. For a unique looking ring, you have the Ring of the Mira, and my personal favorite, Hircine's ring. For a circlet, you have the Ethereal Crown, which is an overall winner for me. An honorable mention here is the Crown of Baranzaya. Now, I very reluctantly put it here because it is a huge disappointment. You get all 24 gems only to find out that, you know what, you actually cannot equip the crown. It's just supposed to sit there in the Thieves Guild. It does give you this like stat buff where there is a higher chance for you to find gems in chests and various other locations, but yeah, it's really not worth it, to be honest. I would much rather be able to wear it, but it is what it is. Overall, I think that Skyrim has some really nice pieces in the jewelry department. We have talked about clothing before and how I felt that they could have actually done a lot more in that department, and maybe somewhere in jewelry there were additional opportunities, but honestly, with things like the introduction of the Amulets of the Divines, I think it is forgivable. I like that jewelry has its place in Skyrim. The Jarls and richer NPCs can be seen to wear these pieces, and you immediately place them in a particular social class based on that. But at this point, as we've seen it, jewelry has always had its place in the world in the Elder Scrolls games. From something as simple as jewelry worn as a fashion statement to the crown jewel of the Empire. When you make your way through the games and you collect these items, you always subconsciously remember them, and if you're someone like me, you may even want to own them in real life. Anytime merch comes out and it's an in-game piece of jewelry, I am on that immediately. It is a shame that there's not enough of that out there yet. Why is that, Todd? Don't you want my money? But yeah, that about covers it for our deep dive into the Elder Scrolls jewelry, both lore-wise and aesthetically. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and do check out the link to the Holzkern website down below in my description if you are currently shopping for a beautiful and unique Christmas gift. Thank you for all the support, guys, as always, and I'll see you next week. Be seeing you. Bye!